Hi, I'm Jamie, and today I'm going to teach you how to make shrimp scampi. The first thing you need to do is make sure you have all of your ingredients. So I'm cooking for two, so I have 1 pound of shrimp. Usually the general benchmark is half a pound of seafood per person. So I have a pound of shrimp, and I have them deveined just because it's easier, and then I like to pop the tails off. You just kind of squeeze them and pop them off before I cook them. Some people like to leave the tails on for more flavor, but I just think it's kind of a pain to cut them off when you're eating it. So that's up to you. I like to pop them off. So I have a pound of shrimp. I have 2 lemons, but I'm actually only going to use 1. Some Italian parsley, 2 medium to small tomatoes, white wine, salt, pepper, clove of garlic, and cayenne pepper. And one of the things I like to do when I'm cooking is sort of time what I'm cooking based on what I'm making. So you'll see what I mean by that. I don't use timers or count. I just know the amount of time it takes to chop the parsley is how long the shrimp needs to cook. So everything kind of works together. Oh, the last thing we need too is olive oil. So to start out, I like to chop the garlic first. I'm actually only going to do 1 of these little cloves. You don't need it to be too garlicky. The reason I do this is because in the past, I've, chopped the garlic while the butter and olive oil are cooking, and it burns, because it burns quickly. So the first thing I do is get the garlic chopped, and I don't use the bear claw method when I chop, because I just feel like you're asking to lose a finger. So when I do it, I chop like this. And it's a little messy, but it's safer. So you always move your hand up as close to the blade as you can while still being on the handle. And then your left hand goes on top. Some people do this like bear claw thing, but I don't think that's safe. And then you just kind of keep going down over and over again. I mean, you can just watch TV while you do it. You don't have to really even pay attention. And you just keep doing this until you feel like it's the right size. Some people like chunkier pieces of garlic. We kind of like it small, so I chop it nice and small. So that's it. That's the garlic. And now, just slide it off. It's ready to go in the pan. So to start the scampi, you need, it's up to you, I like to do about 1 tablespoon of butter. If that's too much, then just stick with olive oil. If you just like butter, then do 2 tablespoons. And then about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So I put them in the pan before I turn it on. Butter, the olive oil, kind of just coat everything. You can't use too much olive oil, it's good for you anyway. And then I put the garlic in before I start. If you have other stuff to do and you just want to leave it like that, you can, because it'll just slowly flavor everything, even if it's not cooking yet. So next up, I'm just going to get this started. And this is a really big burner, so I'm going to turn it to low, but I would always kind of err on the side of keeping the burner low. Slow cooked food is always better anyway. It's up to you. So while that's melting, I can kind of start to get my other ingredients ready. You probably know that shrimp cooks really quickly, so everything sort of happens fast once the heat is on. So by the time it takes me to pour 1/2 cup of white wine, which is key ingredient, and chop my lemons, the butter and the olive oil are starting to heat up. This also gives me a little bit of time if I want to start to work on some of the tomatoes. I think I'll start with the big one because I'm going to want the small one for later. So you can be super messy with this. It doesn't matter because it's just going right into the scampi. I just cut it as close to the core as possible so I don't waste any. And you can leave the seeds in, and some people don't like the seeds, but it doesn't matter. The juicier they are, the creamier the sauce will come out. It almost has like an Alfredo texture, but there's no cream in it. It's just from the tomatoes. Just watching the olive oil and butter because it can burn. So when you're cooking, you're always doing 2 things at one time. That's what's so great about it. because then you're really focused on what you're doing. You're not thinking about anything else. It's nice. Okay. So the olive oil is starting to kind of simmer a little. I'm gonna add a little more olive oil. And then I'm just gonna wait until I can smell the garlic. You don't wanna burn the garlic. It tastes pretty gross when it burns. Okay, I smell the garlic, which means it's time to pour in the white wine. And once you pour in the white wine, you can do the salt and pepper. Just makes too much pepper. All right, so the salt and pepper, I just eyeball it. If you want to measure it out, you can. The key with all of these things is you can always add more, but you can't take it out. So be careful. I just shake a little bit of salt and then a lot of pepper, because that's going to give it its flavor. There isn't a lot of ingredients in this dish, so you need a lot of salt and pepper. And then tap in some cayenne pepper. You can see my cayenne isn't even open, but there's like residual from another time I've used it. I'm not even going to open it. I'm just going to use that. If you put too much cayenne pepper, it's going to burn your face off. You can't eat that. All right, so now that this is sort of simmering and boiling, just let that go. Now you can start getting your shrimp ready. I've already taken the tails off. I've peeled them all off, but if I hadn't, I could just do it right now, and the timing is perfect for putting the shrimp in. Since I've already done it, I'm gonna throw it in now. So I just lay them down on one side, and honestly, by the time you finish with the first one, the last one, the first one's finished. They cook really fast. Oh, I missed one. See, he's already cooked. I only just put him in a second ago. So I just pinch the tail and he smushes right out. I'm gonna chuck him in there. Pinch the tail, smushes out. That's a good way to get the meat out of the tail. A lot of people chop the tail off and then they waste a lot of that good shrimp that's in there. And see, it's making a lot of noise. That's just because it's hot. But like I said, slow cooked food is really better than anything, so just turn it down. You're better off to cook slowly than to have something burn, because you can't uncook it. All right, so now that's going. And while that's cooking, now I'm gonna chop the Italian parsley. So I'm really lazy about this. I know a lot of people don't like the branches. I don't either, but I'm lazy. So what I do is I just take a serrated knife and I cut it on an angle. And when you cut it on the angle, it tends to get all the leaves and leaves a lot of the branches behind. And this is more than enough Italian parsley. You don't need a ton, but it will cook down and it smells really delicious. So now I do the exact same method that I did with the garlic. I just chop it with that up and down motion. And if I see any big trees hanging out, I cut them off, but for the most part, they kind of just get cooked out anyway. So I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna do the exact same method and just chop, 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 like all over it. You smush it together, you go again. Smush it together. It doesn't have to be perfect. When you bake, you need to be very precise and really perfect. When you cook, the idea is to really not be precise. Then you kind of get something new every time. It's really fun. All right, so we're chopping. And this looks pretty good to me. So in the amount of time it took me to chop the parsley is almost the exact amount of time it takes for the shrimp to cook. So you don't have to think about, oh, how much time? You just chop one thing and something else is going. So now I'm gonna flip all of these over so that the raw side is down so the other side can cook. And again, doesn't need to be perfect, it's fine. It's all gonna get cooked. You could cook shrimp anywhere. All right, so I'm gonna leave that now. I'm gonna go get my Italian parsley. And I'm just gonna drop it right on top. Now I'm gonna take one of my quarters of the lemon. Got to see that. I'm just gonna squeeze it all over. The lemon is really important. It's what gives it all of its flavor. Now I'm gonna take a top. It doesn't matter if your pans don't have top, you just find a top. And take a top and cover it so that we start cooking everything together while I finish chopping the tomato. And the same rule, as long as it takes to chop the tomatoes, as long as that needs to cook. So it's not an exact science. So again, I'm gonna use my serrated knife. I'm just gonna cut it close to the core so I don't waste anything. And everything's starting to smell really delicious, which is fun. And it's fun to make them all different sizes too, because sometimes the people that you're making the dinner for like chunkier pieces, sometimes they don't. So you just mix it up. All right, so now I'm gonna take my top off of here, and now I'm going to put the tomatoes on top. And you see I haven't stirred anything yet. I'm just laying it on top because I'm still letting the shrimp cook in that like wine butter broth, because it's really delicious. So I'm just laying this on top here. And then I'm gonna do another quarter lemon and just squeeze that on top. And what happens when these tomatoes cook down is they create like a cream sauce. It's really cool because a lot of people, a lot of Italians in particular, don't like to mix dairy with seafood, like Parmesan cheese or milk. So this is great because you don't mix any dairy in, but you still get that creamy texture. And I might just do a little bit more pepper and a little bit more salt. And then if I'm being really daring, I might even do a little bit more cayenne. You just gotta be careful with the cayenne. So now I'm gonna turn it down even more, and I'm gonna start to fold it all together. And then I cover it. So what I like to do at this part is I like to clean up, because in my mind, the amount of time it takes to clean up is the amount of time it takes for the rest of the fish to cook. So this is when I clean everything up. And I think sometimes people are a little bit put off by cooking because they think it's gonna be messy. But if you clean up as you go, it doesn't really get messy. And it's kind of fun because then you're constantly occupied and you don't have to really pay attention. You just do whatever you need to do, and then all of a sudden you got a delicious dinner. Hi, welcome back. So the shrimp and the tomato and the parsley's been on the stove for maybe 8 minutes, not a lot. I've turned it up a little so you can see that it's really starting to bubble. And I've kept it covered the whole time, and that's for the tomatoes. And I don't know if you can see, but the sauce is actually really pink and creamy. So at this point, it's pretty much finished. Now, there's a few ways that you can serve this. You can turn it off and let it cool and serve it over a cold pasta salad. You can make pasta and mix it in over the pasta. We like to do that just because we like to have it with like a linguine. And when I do that, I would definitely transfer it like this when it still has a little bit more to cook, so it can finish kind of cooking over the pasta. Or the last thing you can do, which is what we're doing tonight, is you can just serve it like this and put some fresh garlic bread on the side and a nice glass of wine. And that's it. Here you have the delicious meal. Bye.